Hey, this is Tom.
Just steer the ship and not say
What's
things
up,
that
Tom?
we're gonna demand.
No, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Maybe not,
that'll never work.
but now we'll do
So
it. And
whatever, yeah, let him get in.
I got Zach, I got Dwight, I got Nancy, Damian, Becca. I got a Deb. Is it Deb?
Hi, sorry, it's Deb Mattingly. I'll change my name on here.
Who is it?
It's Deb Mattingly.
Hey, Deb, thanks. Thanks for joining. Hey, Becca.
Hi. Waiting for the kids to leave the background here.
Waiting on John. We got Zach, we got Damian, yourself, myself. I can't even see anymore.
Do you want me to text John Dwayne?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tom, do you have the agenda? What the specific charge was?
Yeah, I can get it here.
Okay, yeah. I had to restart my computer and I had everything queued up and now it's gone.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's too far back. Am I allowed to update about anything else at this meeting?
Yeah, we just can't, I think you can, but we can't talk about it.
Okay. I heard from Martha Craig from the Herring River group, and she says that it is in fact somebody from the board who they need as a representative from the shellfishing community. So we can talk about that some other time, but
Okay,
that was the information.
so it's got to be a board member.
Yes.
I haven't heard back from John.
We got a quorum.
Do you?
Well,
Yep.
yes. So we're designated Damien to vote tonight. So while we wait for John, we will begin the meeting. It is 6:07. Looks like we've got just a couple people in the audience today. Hello, thank you for coming. All right. Tom, would you like to read the
Yeah, sure.
What it was.
The agenda basically states a discussion of boundary issues between licensed grant holders with regards to conditions for use of area license for agriculture, grant marketing, and extension of acreage without permission. Recommendation to select board by February 1st, 2022.
All right. Where shall we start? So a lot of this seems to have been mixed in with the Hatilda property discussion. I went back and watched parts of the video from, was it June 6th, June 4th, somewhere in June. where we already discussed an awful lot of this. And we had a lot of good feedback at the time. A lot of it leaning towards, this is already in our regulations, why aren't we just following the regulations? Does anybody have any comment on
Becca.
that? Yeah.
Becca, I think we have the regulations.
Mhm.
And Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking the select board is looking for a process
Mhm.
or a method or a protocol, whatever they want to explain it, of what if, okay? And what do I mean by what if? I think a good exercise, I don't know if it's crazy, but if we created a grant tomorrow, my understanding is we have to, that grant owner, the new grant owner, after gets the state approvals and Nancy's approvals and the harbor master's approvals, et cetera, he or she would have to do a survey.
Mhm.
And so the survey starts, and that's the what if that I'm thinking of. So the survey starts, and if there's no issues with boundaries, we're okay. But what if there's an issue with boundaries on the guy to the left or the guy to the right? And I think that's where, from me going back to some of these meetings, I was getting from the select board, you know, what would we do? What is the process? What is the, you know, where do they go to Nancy? Do they bring it to the select board? Do they have to go out and get their own survey done? And that's where I think my head was listening to all these comments. I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I guess
Yeah.
I'd like to hear, this is Nancy.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from some of the grant holders in the room. Dwight, Dave, Jake, Zach, Becca. Hi, John.
Does anybody want to start?
I'm not a grant holder, but I'm sorry, I'm a little behind tonight, but I'm looking at 7.18. It'd probably be a good place to start is to look at the actual reg. Actually it's 7.1, right?
Make a good point. Let me pull up my regulations.
Sorry for coming in late, guys. What exactly are we talking about here?
What was our charge here? We're looking at boundary dispute holistically here.
All right.
Yeah, John, we mentioned that we have regs kind of address it. But I had thrown out with hopefully some of the commercial guys with grants can help us here. But if we get a new grant has to have a survey. And if the survey with their neighbors causes problems, you know, what is the solution or what's the protocol?
It's I thought it was between the leaseholders. You duke it out amongst themselves.
Right,
Section
but
7,
by what
right?
method?
You go through the Shellfish constable, I guess you would, I have no idea how you would do it, but you know, if one person's saying the bound is in one place and the other person is saying, no, you're wrong, I've been farming there for forever, then it seems like the next step is you have to hire a professional surveyor to come in and do it all over again. And, you know, I think what you need to do is you need to come up with a regulation that deals with GPS. If GPS is going to be the de facto, you know, guide to where the markers go, then that should be written somewhere. That should be in a regulation. But I think for right now, you still pay a surveyor to go out there and pop a peg in the ground. Isn't that right?
Sure.
Just like you were gonna do it on the land for for property bounds on a lot.
Right, so John, say there's a dispute between you and I.
Yes,
I think what Tom was saying before you got here was they're really looking for like kind of a protocol, or like what is the system that we would walk through to resolve that dispute. It just goes to the select board, or
so if it was me, right, if it was you and me, I'd say, Zach, we have to go talk to Nancy and figure out what to do. And then Nancy would say, okay, this is what we do. You
Right.
know, you guys need to get together, chip in and hire a surveyor, or because whoever was the aggrieved party, whoever, you know, like if there was a new grant, or if there was somebody that says that my grant's always been in this place, it's been in this place for forever, and now you're telling me it's not, then that would be the aggrieved party. So it's basically, somebody's got to pay for the surveying.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets resolved, I guess. I mean, there's just, I don't know that it's written anywhere how it goes, how a
Yeah.
dispute goes.
I don't think it is. I could be wrong, but I don't think it is. But that sounds reasonable. I mean, the aggrieved party
Yeah.
brings it to your attention and pays for the surveyor, and then it's pretty
And
simple.
then that's real, I mean, typically, I would imagine that people that are leaseholders here are a pleasant bunch of people that are reasonable. And I don't think that you're gonna get into a situation where somebody's saying, you know, that this is mine, it's been mine for 40 years, and you're not gonna get it, period. I'm not gonna deal with you. It's gonna get resolved, and there's gonna be a survey done, whoever, you know, the aggrieved party is. And somebody should write that in a regulation, and it should be in the reg somewhere, I would think.
I see Dave's hand up. Dave?
Couldn't it just be so that, because then like there'd be a contention point about who would pay for a survey, and then also where do we go get a survey, and who do we trust and all that. Like, what if the Shellfish department just got like a really good GPS and it was somehow certified as like a, you know, an accurate tool, and, you know, we could go out there and everybody would get their grant bounds marked out, and then that would be that, you know. And if there was some sort of, you know, when someone questions the GPS, just be like, this is the certified tool that we're going with, and it's like a high-end tool, you know.
I would suggest that GPS is probably not the best way to do it. I think that, although if they're good and they get you within, I don't know, 8 feet or 5 feet or something like that, even that, it's not as good as a survey. And I think that, and it doesn't really matter who does the surveying. Anybody that's a licensed surveyor can do it. So it's just whoever you want to do it, as long as they've got a stamp on it that said it was a professional survey. And, you know, I would imagine when you play it all out, if somebody's mad because now they think they lost like 2 feet of productive bottom that they were using, then maybe you make an arrangement to redraw the boundaries if that's proper, if it's doable. If it's not doable, then you basically, you move your shellfish. You dig them up and you move them, or you wait until they're legal size, and then you sell them, and then you don't plant there anymore. So I would guess. And I'm not I don't have a skin in the game here because I'm not a commercial guy. But I think that it would seem to me most of the people are going to be willing to work it out. And it's just a matter of getting the procedure down. So, you know, you get 2 people that get into a dispute. They're going to contact Nancy. Nancy's going to say, well, she'll just figure out who's the aggrieved party here, and whoever it is, they're the ones that has to pay for the surveys to get it squared away.
Yeah. Becca, can I ask through you to Tom.
Sure.
Who, so I'm sorry if I missed it, but how are you assuming that we're looking for a formalized process to do this? I mean, I'm thinking of like land disputes, and you really just define your boundaries. And then if you need to, you go talk to the authorities about it.
Zach, I got the public hearing notes from the discussion on boundaries.
Okay.
And in there, it talks about Becca's comments, my comments, Chair Curley's comments, Mike DeFasco's comments. And then at the board discussed in great length the options and protocols the board has when addressing conflict. It was stated many times that we need a method and a protocol. And they used if Nancy had left, say Nancy leaves, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, somebody's going to have a dispute and they're going to look for the method. That's what they're looking for, the method and protocol if a new constable came into play. Or, Nancy's still there, of course, but, and that's where I'm getting it. And then it says, some of the comments from the select board, comments from the comments from the Marine Advisory Board, comments from the SAB, blah, blah, blah. That's where I'm getting it, Zach.
Okay.
All right.
So then
And
we
I
have-
just took that and I just, I ran a scenario in my head, the what ifs, and then, John and yourself and, the what if we had a dispute? Where do they go? I mean, I think it's as basic as that. Where do they go? They go to Nancy.
Yeah.
Now, John talked about certified surveyor. Do we pick one or two or three or four, or you got to pick somebody that's certified?
Yeah, I don't think that doesn't really matter who the surveyor is. Pardon me for butting in, but all I'm doing is I'm thinking about land disputes, and it happens frequently. People don't know where the boundaries are on their property here, and it's the same way out there. And I don't know how you put a peg in the ground in sand that's underwater, but I imagine there's a way to do it. If it's a buoy or if it's something that marks the corner. But that would be done by a surveyor as opposed to you and I could go walking through the woods with the GPS and say, well, this is where my lot is, but that's not sufficient.
That's
You
not
have to
official.
pay a surveyor to get it done.
All right, Damien is
Damien's
next.
got it.
Yep,
I'm sorry,
Damien's
Patrick.
next and then Dwight. So
Yep.
Damien.
I just, well, I don't know if I'm unmuted or not.
We can hear you.
An observation to me is I'm right now waiting for a land surveyor. We called around quite a bit and the wait times were out a couple months and the cost
Yes.
was upwards of $3,000.
Yes.
I could see that being problematic to simply requiring a surveyor to manage any dispute. I think including language that allows the Shellfish Department to utilize GPS for reckoning boundary would be in everyone's, or I think it would be in good interest. Secondly, in 714, where the department is required to make an annual visit, at least one, there's no real other language. And that's something that I would think, and I would think the majority of the community members would think would be accomplished in your annual grant inspection, that these inspections would include just a rough check of the boundary via GPS. And Nancy, through I'm wondering her input on that.
Nancy, do you want to?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, in fact, they are. We have a whole checklist of things that we go over. Basically, we go through section 7, which is all of the regulations regarding aquaculture. And then we have a 4-page, it's really probably 3 pages of information that we collect on site. So we check boundaries, but we use the GPS to check each of the boundary points. We check for tagged gear. We checked for resubmergence areas. if there's derelict gear, like anything basically that's written in the regs, we go over once a year with these shellfish grant inspections.
Dwight, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
So, Nancy does come out every year. We've been living by GPS so far. And so, she came out and we actually did move a couple of markers at the end of Old Wharf Road. And there's really two different types of disputes. One would be if there are any ongoing disputes right now, which I'm not aware of in my area. I don't know if there are disputes in other areas, but in our area, we've lived by GPS. Now, if you were to establish a new grant, that would be something different. I would think that you would take the area that somebody has already marked off, has their markers in place every year. Nancy GPSs them every year. That should be their established grant. That's what they've been working. And if somebody new were to create a grant, you could GPS the new boundaries, but require the new person to have the survey. And then the same thing if there are any old grants that then change hands, that a new person would have to survey the grant that was established by the GPS. So eventually, as grants change hands, if they do change hands, those would become surveyed by the new person. That would be part of their responsibility if they wanted a grant. I think it'd be a little onerous right now to try to go out and survey all of the grants in town. We've been living by GPS. It's been working. We had no problems when we had to move our line. I think it was 2 buoys that we moved, and our neighbor was fine, and we both were able to maintain the same size grant. So that's just what I have to say. 2 types of disputes. If you've got a new grant, establish the new grant with GPS, then have the person go out and survey it. And also, if there's somebody that's buying an old grant, that they would survey those markers, and then that would fully establish. But what do we think?
All right. So Jake.
If I could just answer,
Yeah.
Dwight, what you just explained about for new grants, we just incorporated that into the regulations.
Okay.
So that is now part of the process, exactly as you described. For somebody who's new, they get permission with temporary points from the town, and then temporary boundary markers from the town. And then they have to have a professional surveyor come out. And then those will be the ones that the town would use moving forward. And we'd go out with our, there'll be a cross check. So, we go out with our GPS, we mark the boundary points. This is happening right now, actually. And it's on your other grant. We've gone out, we've collected the boundary points where they are. And now, and then the survey goes out, and we would go and say, okay, this is where we think one, but they're going to do it with their precision to get it perfect. And then that what goes in the person's license.
Becca, through you.
Yeah.
Can I ask Nancy, or just in general? I just don't know. How do boundaries get marked by a surveyor in the sand? Are there spikes that go in the ground? How do the buoys stay put? Or how do you know that they're staying put usually?
They use metal posts, iron posts.
Banged into the ground, like rebar, something like rebar,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I will find out on Monday, because we're doing this on Monday.
All right, because
But,
those are the, yeah.
Sometimes over time, especially the older grants, you can't really find them anymore. But a lot of times, we'll walk right up to that point with our GPS. We have a fairly expensive GPS. I want to say we paid between $300 and $400 for it. It's not like a $99 special. We invested in GPS because it's a tool that we need for this project, for grant inspections. And most of the times we're walking right up to it, but especially with older grants, sometimes things have shifted.
Okay, I'm calling on Damien next because he's on the board, and then we've got Jake and then Dave. So Damien.
I'm just want to clarify that the utilization of the surveyor is strictly for new grants in the new language and not for grant transference. And if we're going to incorporate something with new names coming on the grants, like Dwight was suggesting, and I think we've discussed previous, what would be like, what would be the incentive, or like, where would that occur? Because we have a lot of grants with multi listed. At what point are you gonna, like, would it be for every new person coming on the grant? That doesn't seem like it would work well, or I'm just wondering how that would work.
Or maybe like within 5 years of, or within 10 years of a survey, you could add people, or before having to redo your survey, like that kind of language, maybe.
I gotta tell you, pardon me, Becca, but the way surveys, once you get it surveyed once, you should be done. You shouldn't have to ever do it again. I mean, that's the way it is on land. You can always find, people are silly enough just to put a regular wooden stake in the ground with a flag on it. That's good. But there's ways to make those things permanent in the ground so that you can always find them. And so I would think once you've paid to have your lease surveyed once, you should be done. And that should be the definitive description of identification of where your boundaries are.
It's possible that there should be like, this should be year 0. And anything at this point that isn't in compliance should get resurveyed. And then going forward, now that GPS is handheld and it can be checked yearly, there should be less trouble with it. But we've got grants that are 30 or 40 years old that nobody's checked for 30 or 40 years. So you can't expect that there hasn't been some drift at the very least. But anyway, Jake.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Becca. Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of things that said. When the grants were surveyed, when people first got their grants, for as long as there's been grants, surveyors come out and they're super accurate, and they mark it, and then they put the metal post in, so it stays there. But like you were talking about, over time, like the sand can drift over it. You can't really find it, so you come back out in the spring and you kind of put it maybe wherever, and maybe that's where some of the problems have come into. But just going back to kind of like the start of the process, I think if two people have an argument, or if Nancy says, oh, you're way off, then Nancy has to kind of do her best to determine it, maybe with the GPS. And if somebody doesn't like it, then they have to go get it surveyed. There's really no other way to have it super accurate than having it surveyed. So at some point, if somebody has a problem, they're going to have to get it surveyed. But I think the first step is for Nancy to go out, see if they can settle it somehow. If they can't, then they would have to go and have it, paid for a survey.
Sort of a logical step by step.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
the Shellfish department.
Yeah, maybe someday the town could get some grant money or something and resurvey all the grants. I mean, I think that would be very, very expensive for the town to do on its own dollar. But maybe, maybe someday there's some grant out there or something that could do it and say, here are all the boundaries. This is what it is. But the surveyors are accurate. They're accurate then. They're accurate now, more so than a GPS. I know these GPS now can get probably pretty close, like within, I don't know what the error range is, but pretty close. But yeah, so that's all I was thinking.
All right, Dave, you're next.
Yeah, I was kind of just realizing something. Like, I know I just went down to my basement and I was looking at my paperwork for my grant, and there's no coordinates or anything of like where my boundaries are on the piece of paper. And so like, because that's what I was just thinking of. I was like, I remember getting that outside farm and not really knowing where my stuff was, like where my boundaries were. So I went by old boundaries. And I think if people don't know where their actual boundaries, like they don't have a piece of paper. I was just looking up like land disputes, just like while this conversation was going on, and like what you do and what neighbors, it says like what neighbors should do is they should bust out their deeds and their property lines and compare what they are. But if we don't have anything to compare to, that, like Dave Seitler thinks that he has a piece of paper that says that this is his boundary, and then Becca has hers, and we're neighbors, like if they differ,
Mhm.
or like we can be like, hey, this is what this piece of paper says, but if you don't have that, and then we only have what the board says at the Shellfish department to go by, like I was just saying, that outside farm is moving in that I have, like where in proximity am I going to be with Will if I don't have his coordinates and I don't have my coordinates? And like, how do we come to even a slight agreement if we don't really understand where we are? Because those coordinates are old. It's an old style of GPS mark. It's surveyor marks, I believe.
Mhm.
So we don't really have anything to go by.
Can I just ask Dave a question?
Yes, Nancy.
Dave, so on your license, it doesn't have boundary points, or does it say like from this bound and then that sense 46 yards to this? It doesn't have that? Which grant?
No,
010?
yeah, 0103. I was just looking
0104 or 103?
the
I'll look that up.
outside.
You should have
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I have it now. Like I remember you and I were going through it, but like it doesn't have the thing on my license, so I don't have a piece of paper. Like I'm just, because I was just looking up this online, I don't have anything to be like, hey Becca, like what does your piece of paper say?
Mhm.
And this is what mine says. So like where do we go from there? If
Mhm.
we both don't understand the coordinates
Right.
that are at the Shellfish office, or even
Mhm.
on our license,
So
Yeah.
if I,
Yes.
something else, so in my experience, but I'm going to go check this out, every lease between the town and each leaseholder gets a copy. There are coordinates. Now, some of them are GPS coordinates, and some of them, in minutes and seconds, or perhaps there's a few new ones in decimal degrees. I'm not sure. I think everything was in minutes and seconds. And then some of the older ones though are difficult, because it's like from this point, and then you walk this much to that point, and then you walk this much to, so those are harder. But somehow around the passing of the years, there were actual points, and they're on, at least in 2012, Slade produced 2 maps for the Shellfish department. And in those maps, every single person's boundary points were in there. So, I often will take pictures of the map and then text it to a shellfishman, here are your 4 coordinates. We then took that and we got actually from Outermost, who bought Slade. We asked them for all of that data, all of those boundary points that from the Slade map from 2012, and in digital files. So they emailed us all of those data points, which then I hired a consultant to change from minutes and seconds to decimal degrees. And so this is a project that has been loaded to our GPS. So I don't know how from the license areas they got into the Slade map of 2012, but some large project must have happened, and that's what the Shellfish department uses. And I think that it's all we have. So maybe there needs to be something in the regulations, and I'm kind of looking at the sections now that says, you know, each lease will have the GPS boundary points in decimal degrees, or that the Shellfish Department, the town of Wellfleet Shellfish Department is the keeper of the GPS coordinates for each grant. And those will be the ones that need to be adhered to. You know, I can't explain how we got them, but I know that we have them, and that's what we use for our grant inspections. And we can certainly, any grant that is written currently in the old, let's just say, meets and bounds, you know, we could certainly undertake a project to update the license agreements, the leases, with the GPS coordinates that we have from 2012 that have been translated into decimal degrees.
Damien?
So that very much sounds like we have a tool that we can use in all of this. And also that we should be adding to that tool. So requiring new grants to provide boundaries in decibels, either decimal degrees or minutes and seconds.
Which hopefully they would be getting if they get a survey. Should be fairly easy.
Yeah, but yes, but I think we should, you know, include that in the language so that it's, you know, part of the regulation.
Okay. Tom, was that you waving? your hand?
Yeah, I don't know, is Dwight still on?
I see him.
Yeah, I see him. He's on mute.
Okay.
Hey, Dwight. And maybe he stepped away.
There he is.
Right
There he
here.
is. Hey, Dwight, it's Tom.
Hi, Tom.
So, hi. So when you went through your grant inspection,
Yes.
can you go in a little more detail on the process with your neighbor? So Nancy said you were off a couple feet here and there, and
Yeah.
I'd be wondering if,
so
did you have any product planted there? And
it actually was, my neighbor had product planted there, but we're all oysters. So that makes it a little easier than clams. And so the neighbor moved his oysters, and he was happy because he didn't lose distance, or he didn't lose size. He just moved his product. So, and we had to move some product from an area that we thought was ours. And we're talking feet here, but, you know, move it as we had to move our marker, then we moved our product over. We moved our racks and the things that were on racks, and our neighbor had some bottom crop, and he moved the things that were his bottom crop, and he moved those over.
do you have a map? Do you have coordinates? Or are you counting on
Yes.
Nancy? You have
Well,
a map?
I relied on Nancy.
Okay. And Nancy
She
was
tells me
comfortable.
where it goes.
So Nancy, you were comfortable with the Slade reports and all that? That kind of worked out okay?
You know, for our operations, yeah, it does. I mean, what else do we have to go on? That's what I have. And my job is to, you know, make sure the regulations are being respected. There are grants out there that were never surveyed. And I found out about another one today, and it's frustrating because, you know, whatever I have in my GPS is what you're going to have from now on. And then, you know, you can, if you think it's wrong, then you can get a survey. But, you know, and this is happening on Field Point to one of Dwight's, there's 3 grants, and we went out there and things were really off. And it's okay. I mean, we're working, this is a project, and the 3 grant holders got together, and they are hiring a surveyor to come out and we're doing a resurvey. You know, one of the things, it had never been surveyed in the past. And so they had boundary points that were up in the beach grass. Well, you know,
Yikes.
yeah, I mean, no,
That's not right.
nobody would ever have really approved that. So I don't know what happens then, but we're going to fix it now, and we're going to fix it, you know, together. And we're absolutely partners in this. We want everybody to be successful, and we're not trying to take bottom away from anybody. And if people are having disputes, you know, if I could, I'm just going to put something up in the chat. And this, you know, it's a regulation that, you know, says, oh, if somebody's extending their boundaries. But really, the way that I interpret it is, sure, okay, if somebody has extended their acreage without permission, but what if, you know, there is a dispute, or what if they're just over time, like Jake was saying, of course that happens. Like you take it off, you come back, oh, where'd that pipe go? I think it was here. Like these are not things that are done maliciously. So it's 7.23, extension of acreage without permission.
The Shellfish Constable may cause licensed area to be resurveyed. Is that where we're going? Oh, you're muted. Nancy, you're muted.
Nancy, you're muted.
Sorry, how long was I muted for?
5 seconds.
But you're right, Becca. Yeah, the
Okay.
Shellfish Constable may cause a licensed area to be resurveyed. This just happened with 3 grants on Field Point. I caused them to have to resurvey their grants, and by a registered civil engineer. And whenever the assigned boundaries of an aquaculture license are called into question. So I can call it into question, or maybe neighbors could call it into question. But if there's a question, we have a method right here of how to deal with it. In my eyes, I think this regulation gives us that leeway. I'm interested to hear what you all think.
Dave, is your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if we, like how I was saying, like what if we did just get ordinance of our own for all of us to have, then we would have like a basic understanding of where we were, you know, if I had a piece of paper that was like, this is where you need to be, there would be no questioning the shellfish department, my neighbor. And if it was from the town, you know, like that's my spot, you know. And then I could come back and GPS where that point is every year. So then I wouldn't move anywhere. And you'd be hard pressed to find a boundary dispute after that, unless somebody's like, I don't believe your GPS is right. Then you could call a surveyor. But if you're worried about, like, you know, the few feet or whatever, or the buoys marking, I mean, all of us have access to a GPS at this point, and we could do it on our iPhones now. If we had that, I think it would be good to avoid any, it would be easier to avoid any kind of dispute, you know.
Damien?
Yes, just to address the 723, when I read that and it says that the town or the shellfish department shall cause to invoke, it sounds to me like that's on the dime of the town. And it sounds like it's on the dime of the town because the town's then almost, you know, maybe not criminal, but the town's out to prove that the license holder is in negligence with their boundaries. I don't think that that's, in my year, it's not the appropriate way to manage what we're discussing.
So would we change language? Like, because when I see may cause, I'm causing something, I'm not may decide to have a license area. I feel like may cause, like we're causing you to go out and do that. Like we're doing that on Field Point right now. Unless it needs to be more specific at the expense of the license holder. If there is maybe it needs to be, you know, in the event that assigned boundaries, and maybe that needs to be, you know, as provided by the town of Wellfleet Shellfish Department, of an aquaculture license are called into question, the Shellfish Constable may ask the licensed area to be resurveyed at the expense of the license holders. I just don't see the town having a budget to do this time and again.
Yeah, Becca, I agree with Nancy when it comes to that. I don't think the town, if there's a dispute with three people, you said there's three people out on Field Point, is that right? Nance,
Say that again, sorry?
the Field Point, there's three separate leases that are right in a row or something like that, that people are trying to figure out where to go. Is that the idea?
Yeah, they just, the markers were off by a lot and they were in areas that I don't think were correct.
Okay, so,
And their
Well, okay,
leases
when you
had
say
never been
off-
surveyed. Okay,
So
so
when
their
you say
leases had never
okay.
been professionally surveyed, so that's
so
why too.
okay, so when you say off by a lot, where, off by, according to what? You have a piece of paper when you
Our
get it,
GPS.
when you get a lease, I assume you're the minutes or the meets and bounds or whatever, it's a description that's there. And so you're describing the property as having four corners, for instance. And those four corners are, if they're not correct, that's, and I gotta tell you, if they're not correct, but you're not bugging anybody and nobody's complaining about it, then there is no issue. However, if there is a dispute, somebody's gonna be the one that's gonna be disputing it. And, you know, again, I'm just not sure how, this particular one, I'm not sure how to work it out. If you're saying that one of the boundaries is all the way up in the grass, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I think that, but like I said, what should be the case is that when everybody gets a lease, there should be a document that says, here's where the corners are. And now, if you go out there and you're with your GPS and you say, something's wrong here, these are like 8 feet or 10 feet away from where there should be, I think then that you deal with that on an individual basis. I think what it is, I believe that we're making an issue here where there probably isn't a big issue that's gonna come up often. I know it's nice to be able to button everything up, but I think that that's kind of where it's at. It goes through you get the parties together and you try to figure out what to do. And it could be a matter of something, either adjusting what's in the town record or adjusting where the buoys are, marking the corners. But once you pay a surveyor to get out there once, is that those survey points should be good for forever. They don't move.
But this was never surveyed. It was
Okay,
never
so-
surveyed professionally.
So then how
Absolutely.
does that work? I mean, how does
I don't know.
how does that
Before my
work?
time.
Yeah.
From now on, that will never happen because we added it to the regs. But it
So-
happened, you know,
Yeah.
over
it
10
happens.
years ago.
So
Over
you
10
said
years ago.
there's ones out there right now that are old grants that have never been surveyed, correct?
Yes.
So, but they are on a piece of paper showing somewhere where the corners are supposed to be, but they've just never been surveyed in 50 years, for instance. So therefore, you keep going the way that they are right now with the buoys where you are by GPS, and until there is a dispute and somebody can figure out for sure that, look, you're way off here, and then you get a surveyor. Somebody pays for a surveyor, but it's not going to be the town.
Right. So we have Damien, Jake's hand has been up and gone down. Is that correct? And then we have Tom. So Damien?
Yes, I'm just looking at that 723 again, and I'm wondering if this is just a thought. So if we're trying to incorporate this into what we're discussing, extension of acreage without permission, and we could extend that, and satisfaction of boundary disputes, we could add there at some point, or the town could add there a description of the Slade map and GPS data points, and then have the language as it carries through the written 723 clarify that the resurvey by a civil engineer be, if required, at the grant holder or multiple grant holders' expense. And I think that would kind of sum up all of this, if I'm not missing anything.
Tom, you have a comment?
Yeah, two things. One, Nance, Dave's comment about beginning of the year, if you send out a note to everybody about their boundaries, is that a big deal? Here's your boundaries, Dave. Here's your boundaries, Zach. Here's your boundaries, Becca. Is that a big deal for your staff to do?
It sure is, but we would do it. So
All right.
it's, because it's not like we have this electronically anywhere, except for as GPS in our GPS. So I don't know how to get it from the GPS to like email, but I could take a picture.
Yeah, I was thinking, yeah, when you talked about the minutes and seconds to decimals and degrees, I thought you said it got in a PDF maybe, or no?
No,
No.
I might be able to work with our consultant. I might be able to work
Okay.
with our consultant to do it. Actually, I'm sure that he can do it. So it's just like an added expense to the budget, which I think is a good expense, and I can definitely look
Yeah,
into it. I think it's a
think
great
that's a good
idea.
idea. And
I
then,
do too.
and the second thing, Becca, to Nance, well, really to Becca and the team here. This example that Nancy's going through with the three grant holders, I suggest we wait till we understand how that all pans out and see the pluses, the pros and cons before we comment to the select board. I hate to comment to the select board and say that, and Nancy finds a new process or a new issue, and then we gotta start all over again. And I don't know, Nancy, how long do you think you don't know?
It's not that, I love the idea, but you don't even know how many months we've been working on this. Like Damien said, it takes forever. And then it's just, I don't think so. We have good agreement. We have absolutely 100% consensus with the grant holders out there on what we're doing. So I don't foresee any problems at all. It's just, we have to get it professionally surveyed. It was never done before. So it's actually a very pleasant experience right now. And it's just trying to get the surveyors out there. It's not even just like, Damien was saying, to try and get a land surveyor, it's months. And now you're talking about tides and weather. And, they're supposed to come on Monday. And I'm like, snowstorm permitting. Will we even be able to drive out there?
Well, they're not gonna be able, Monday, they're not gonna be able to do any land ones because you're gonna have 2 feet of snow. So maybe they'll come out. I don't know, that's just a suggestion. They give us a little more time. Maybe we use that as a reason to kind of postpone, or not postpone this, but just get more time. Because I think this is a pretty healthy discussion tonight.
Okay. Dave, what have you got?
For the existing grants, I guess this is for Nancy. For the existing grants, maybe instead of sending out a note, like, I'm not sure I understood what you were saying either about if you had switched all that stuff, all those coordinates to, what was it? It was in TDs, right?
It was in, it had like minutes, so it had the 2 and then seconds, the 1 little thing after it.
Yeah. So, and we want to get those to.
It's already been done, decimal degrees, which is how GPSs are read
Oh,
now.
so you did.
Yeah, we already did that. That's what we have in our GPS.
Can we make that? Can we make that so that we get like a piece of, like, could you send out a piece of paper that says like what we got, like send out all can you send out a piece of paper that has our boundaries on it so that we always have it? Would that take up a lot of time?
Yeah, it would, but I think it's a valid a valid point, and I think it's probably part of making all this right, and you guys have what we have. And a lot of people who have been applying for, COVID, actually, a lot of people applied for aid, and a lot of people had to provide their boundary points. So they would call us, I'd take a picture of their grant where it's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the corresponding 1, 2, 3, 4 data points on our map. And we did that. I'm trying to get also this new map done where everything will be updated, but now it's like I got 5 grants moving in. I don't want to print a whole, maybe I should just get everything printed now the way it is, with those data points. And then we'll just do it.
Can you do like with, a 3-year deadline or something? It'd be like, everybody get your stuff up to date and submit it by 3 years, and then we're gonna have a new map printed?
No, we're doing that. It's like on us. It's you wouldn't believe what you run into. But I think this is a good idea. I will talk to our consultant and see whether he can kind of parse out that data into either a file or even just copy and pasting it onto something that we could then send out to the grant holders. And I think, wouldn't it be great if we could get that done, in May, right? Before people are, or when people are bringing their stuff back out. I guess that would be earlier, like March or April. So that might be tough, but I think it's a great idea. And that way everybody knows what we know.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if possible, those data waypoints should be available to everyone and possibly through the town website. Should be linkable in an ideal world,
In an ideal world.
Well, that's a really good idea. I wonder, and I'd have to
Interactive
find out
map.
how much it would cost, but hold on. I'm going to call up the town's GIS map. Give me 1 minute. I want to show you guys something.
Okay. Dave, is your hand still up? Up again?
I'll chime in if you're waiting for somebody. I was thinking that perhaps Nancy could post either, on the town website or in the crier and notify people that any grant holders, if you'd like to know the GPS coordinates of your bounds, there could be like a list. You basically you send your request into the Shellfish department, and you get your name on a list. And if you're 10th on the list, after the first 9 people get their coordinates, you get yours. And that way everybody can have access to them, but you don't have to print everybody's, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
If you're curious and you want to know where your boundaries are in GPS coordinates in minutes and seconds, then Nancy will provide them for you.
It's not loading. Oh, here it is loading now. Okay. I think I would rather just do it for everybody, but then have it be piecemeal. All right, bear with me. And then I'm going to share my screen. It'll take a second to populate here. Tell me when you can see it.
Sweet.
That looks good.
Yeah, sweet. What is that? Something's
This
blown
is the
up.
well. Oh shoot, wrong way. Sorry. Plus
There's East Ham.
something going on. I don't know why it's not responding. Just, what's it doing?
It's probably
So-
giving you, yeah.
That's the Bay.
Let's see. All right, well, I don't know. I don't know why it's taking so long to load.
Well,
On
okay,
this GIS map, which is part of the town of Wellfleet on the assessor's database, you can go and choose a layer. You go up here. It's usually on, like, I forget, something else. And then you just scroll down and you do, it's usually on property map. And then you scroll down and you choose Shellfish grant map. And then all the grants are here. So my question would be to the contractor CAI that does this, you know, could they load the boundary points up, and then you could click on them and get the longitude and latitude coordinates. So that's just something for us to look into. It's really cool though to see these here. I just don't know why my computer's not.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna
the
stop
town
sharing.
website's got good maps. Those overlays are really good. I have a hard time navigating through them myself, though.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with my internet or something, or maybe it's the GPS map. I mean, maybe it's the GIS map. It's just being funky.
All right, well, are we trying to solve a problem here tonight? Let's get to the meat of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, we're trying to create a process.
Process for solving disputes between
Recommendation. or
police,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think where we're headed, John, is we're giving recommendations that help the grant holders with the information we're going to share with them. And then hopefully we get some good results from this Field Point situation that's going on, and we can put it all down on a paper and say, hey, here's the process, which is, I think, what they're looking for.
So how about something simple, like some language just says, if anybody has an issue with where their bounds are, they're confused and they think somebody might be trespassing on their property or vice versa, then that person goes to the Shellfish Constable and says that here's my issue, here's my lease. And then it's really the Shellfish Constable gets to be the mediator between the two parties.
Yep.
And that's how it gets worked out.
Well, what if the
And
parties are the town and the grant holder?
how would that be?
Yeah. People don't believe in our GPS.
Well, I gotta tell you, GPS is not the definitive answer for boundary disputes. I can tell you right now, on land, in real estate, GPS doesn't mean anything. It's surveying marks. So professional surveyors, the only way to do it, you can use GPS to try and be friendly about it and say, okay, this is how we're doing it. And whenever that lease transfers 20 years later, then you've got a new person that needs to solve their problem if they think there is one. But for the time being, GPS is okay as kind of like a way to solve the problem without having to pay for a surveyor. However, if somebody's not happy with the GPS marks, they say that's just wrong, then that person has to pay for a surveyor.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of the
So
process.
but I need to say something, John. The GPS is loaded with the surveyed points from Slade Associates from a map created in 2012. So those surveyed points were given to the town, and that's what's in my GPS.
Well, I understand what you're saying is that the GPS coordinates are all loaded in and you have a map that identifies everything by GPS coordinates now. But what I'm saying is global positioning systems aren't sufficient for solving land disputes.
Correct. And that's why
That's right. That's when you have a survey and you get the spikes put in the ground.
All right, and Dave's got his hand up.
I think a good process would be to refer to the, one second, maybe. Would be to first like coordinate, be like, okay, like these are the GPS marks that were input through a survey. But like John was saying, if it's further disputed, like that's all fine and good to put your buoys out at the beginning and end of the year, one gets wiped out. Or if like, there's a friendly dispute, but if it's like really a dispute between the town and a grant or two people who are arguing, I think the second thing would be so nobody wants to pay for a surveyor, and nobody also wants to find a surveyor. So if we're talking about a process of how to do it, there needs to be some language of who's responsible for getting a surveyor in case if there is a dispute among the GPS, because you're right, the GPS will only come within a few feet, regardless of if those coordinates are spot on or not. It's just not accepted, and still can be disputed. So somebody, like, there has to be some language about who will pay for a surveyor if it comes down to it, because that's what it really is. Surveys are expensive, and the hassle of getting it done, nobody wants to actually do that. So a battle will keep going on until somebody takes responsibility for paying a surveyor, and we all don't want the town to take that responsibility on, and for an ongoing battle between two people to keep going on. So I think that would be important to put into a process.
Okay, makes sense.
I feel that we could even get more technical with the language if we're worried really about GPS accuracy. But I agree with Dave's point that you need to allow the technology to be utilized. It's really not the same case as land survey, because there's an expectation here that these markers will shift that you don't necessarily have in a traditional terra firma survey, unless maybe you're in, earthquake country or washouts. I'm not sure, but I think that GPS is a really valuable tool here. Oh, and maybe the language could talk about multiple GPS, in the case of a disagreement, that different units could be consulted.
Yeah, I mean, Becca, I guess through you, I would say that you could have some language to just laid out the process that said, first you try to work it out on a friendly basis with your GPS. If something's wrong and it's not working out, then it's up to the constable as an independent entity who's got, she's only in charge of enforcing the regulations. And it seems to me that, what you would do is you would say that, okay, first of all, I'm trying to figure out when a person gets a house lot and they have setbacks, are there setbacks for your gear in your lease on the sand? Like, can you plant right up to the edge of your lease?
You can.
All right, well, so that poses a little bit of an issue. I mean, so I thought there would be some kind of buffer zone built in.
Sometimes there are. There was that 25-foot buffer zone between grants in some areas, but not all of them.
Okay. So I imagine what it is a lot of the older grants might be real close to one another, and maybe there's really good productive ground right at the edge of the boundary between the two. And maybe that's where you're going to run into a problem. But those are the kind of things that need to be worked out between reasonable parties. And if you can't, there needs to be, the next step is the aggrieved party hires a surveyor. And, if that doesn't work out and you've got somebody that's flipping out saying, I'm not paying for a survey, then unfortunately you get lawyers involved. So that's the way that it goes, to solve disputes like that. And the ultimate settlement of it's going to be a land surveyor that puts pipes in the ground that hopefully don't move.
Nancy?
Yeah, if I can share my screen, I just tried to capture what you guys are saying in a modification to that regulation. Okay, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Oops.
And I can picture a lot of the issues you have on leases out there are similar to ones that happen on the land all the time, where, you know, somebody built a house right on the corner of the, they thought it was on their property, but it ended up being a little bit on somebody else's. And then that's when you get lawyers involved and surveyors.
Okay. Bold is new.
All right.
I feel then that it would need to read if a willful violation of this section is then established for sure, if we're gonna
Yes.
use 723 to
Yeah, a willful violation.
I would
Yes, Dave.
sorry. I'd also add, if the willful violation of this section is then established by of the individual. No, I would to be resurveyed by a registered civil at the grant holder's expense. I would try to define which grant holder would be responsible for getting the survey, like, you know, if it was the dispute party, and if it was the disputing party with the town, or the town was the disputing party. I could see this going to the town, spending a lot of money on surveys. Do you get?
No, I'm not following. Can you clarify? To be
like
resurveyed
possibly
at the
in
grant
no
holders.
case, like possibly in no case can the town be the disputing party.
Well, if that was the case,
Right.
though, that we would have a real problem. But like, so.
So I was actually.
I guess
so-
what I foresee happening is this happening, and then somebody being like, well, I'm not paying for a surveyor, this is what I believe. And then the other person being like, well, I'm not paying for a surveyor, you're the one disputing this. So you're going to run into the same problem of people not wanting to spend the time and effort on getting resurveyed. So somebody has to be held liable if they have a disagreement.
Yeah.
They have to pay for it. But also keep in mind, the town could also be the disputing party. So
How do you figure that?
because if the town is saying, hey, your grant's not where it's supposed to be, that's a really good way to get your grant surveyed.
Okay, well, just that, so let's play that out. How would that happen?
Let's say-
Why would Nancy do that? I mean, you know, I'm just trying to figure out. to
I can-
solve a
I
pro- Go ahead.
I could tell you, let's say that I believe that my farm is actually bigger than it is, and I decide to throw down some gear, and Nancy was like, hey, man, that's like actually not your grant. I could be like, well, fine, I'm going to do this until you tell me, because I don't agree with the GPS points as like a general consensus. And I believe that it's totally cool. So you'll have to get this surveyed if you don't believe it.
Well, okay, but see, that's not the way that works. I mean, if Nancy's telling you that you're wrong, that you've got your stuff on a place that's not actually on your lease, then she tells you you need to go get it surveyed, and that's how it works. You do have to pay to get it surveyed. So now I can see how the town can get involved in it, but again, I honestly don't, you know, playing it out in the real world, if something like that happened, unless you are infringing on somebody else's liberties by going on their lease, I would say you've got a problem and nobody's complaining about so let it be. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's kind of the way it is.
Till somebody complains.
Until somebody complains about it, right? If somebody, and then if
Yeah, but
somebody's,
I think that's the point of this meeting, is because this will happen, and it has happened. So the BOS wants something put in place. So I would just, if it were me doing this, I would really put the liability on, choose somebody to put the liability on who's going to pay, so that
right?
this doesn't just keep on going on and on and on, because it will. It
I gotta-
definitely will.
So this 7.2.3 or 7.23, is this, that's our regulations, or is that state and Mass General Law?
No, this is our regulations.
All right, so somebody just needs to come up with a newer paragraph for the end where it says at the grant holder's expense. We need to lay it out so that there is the steps are, we have a dispute. You're the one that's overstepping your bounds according to the Shellfish Department, and therefore you need to pay to have it surveyed. And the penalty shall be you get your license removed if you don't solve the problem.
Hey, can I jump in here, Becca?
Sure.
I'm back in New York. We got some big disputes here on regulations, town issues. So, and of course, all the lawyers are involved. And the answer that's coming out in the news now is all the issues that were issues have been resolved, and the town is taking care of it, i.e. paying for they challenged these people, they lost, and the town's paying for it. I don't know, Nance, if you can check with the attorneys, but is it worth something in the regs that if we do have this dispute and we say to Dave, you're 20 degrees off. Dave says, no, I'm not. And Dave has to get a surveyor, or we revoke his license. He gets a surveyor, and the surveyor comes back and says, no, Dave's right. Can we put any language in there? I don't know if Wellfleet ever does this, or any town does this, but can we put any language? I know they do in New York, but can we do any language that says if I don't know if I'm using the right, plaintiff is correct, we reimburse him or her? I don't know. Is it worth checking with our attorney?
Somebody worked on this. Bethany, may I jump in?
Yes.
So that end where it's in bold there, that does cover it. I mean, it basically says that may work with she may work with the grant holders to try and resolve the dispute, but ultimately may cause the licensed area to be resurveyed by a registered land surveyor at the complainant grant holder's expense. So it's the complainant grant holder's expense. That's the person. And, the complainant would be, the grant holder, if it's you and you say you're going to have a dispute with the town because you believe that your bounds are much bigger than they are, the fact is that the town isn't the complaining party. You are the complainant, because you're complaining that the maps are wrong. So you need to get resurveyed. So I think it's already covered here. I don't know if there's anything new that needs to go in, or if there's a problem that we're not solving here. Seems to me the process is right here.
I agree with John.
Yeah, I agree. I'm reading it again. I agree.
Damien, are you trying to chime in?
Yeah, I am. I agree with what John just said, and I agree with the language out there, but I got one more point about GPS, and I think it has to do with Dave is talking about if the town's aggrieved against a grant holder, I think it should be on the town to provide more than one set, one instrument. And I think it's a well-spent $1,000 to get 2 more instruments so that you can verify the accuracy of the town's GPS. So it should be, 2 or 3 agreeing within a few feet, like, so if the Shellfish department then has a few different models of a separate GPS system, they can go and verify in the event of like a disagreement, and then it's on the grant holder at that point, to pay for a survey if they still don't believe, 2 of 3 machines or whatever the, trigger is there.
Can I back up, chime in here for 1 second?
Sure.
So,
And then Dwight.
yeah, okay, so what I'm thinking is here is because GPS is nowhere mentioned in here, but everybody uses them. And I think it is important to, the ultimate determination is by a professional land survey, period. However, if you just put the language in there about working with the grant holders to try and resolve the dispute, either by GPS, multiple GPS, or ultimately may cause the licensed area to be resurveyed. So you can put something in there about GPS to say that would be like a first step, and that would be trying to work it out. And if those steps don't work by using 1 GPS, by using 3 GPS devices, then whoever's, the aggrieved part, whoever's the complainant here, pays to get a land survey. So that basically would give you, it doesn't need to be in there, but if that way people would know, they could go there with their GPS, their friend's GPS, get any GPS you want, and try to coordinate it and say that, look, we believe that this buoy, which is like 10 feet over here, and all our GPSs are putting it much closer to like here, which is about 8 or 9 feet away, then that's working it out. And nobody has to pay for a surveyor.
I just want to point out that in finer GPS machines, you can adjust the magnetic variation, which will adjust your points. And so it should be that the town has a set of standard GPSs that are, at factory set or, per Northeast or whatever the regional is. But if you open it up to individuals using their own GPS, you can tweak that.
Well, that's one of the problems with using GPS is that, first of all, each machine is slightly different. I was under the impression at some point that the military put a cap on how close you could actually get with any GPS system because they don't want to make it perfect for defense reasons.
All right, let's hear from Dwight.
Well, I just want to go back to a point that Tom made just a short time ago about what if the town is in error. And it, that's fine. We have a dispute with the town then it turns out that the town was at a mistake. And if right now we're talking about there being no recourse for the person that had to spend money to get that survey done. I think that Tom was on the right track, that Nancy's not going to be there forever. Who knows who the next Shellfish constable will be. And, and they can make mistakes. And if they make a mistake, why should that expense fall totally on the person who was working the correct grant and the town made the mistake? So I would like to make sure that I thought Tom was on the right track there, that the town has to bear responsibility as well. That's the problem with large government, is that, they can do what they want, and then, we end up paying the price to prove ourselves right. So I just, it's all well and good to ask somebody to come out and make sure they do a survey of their grant. But if the town was in error, I think they should pick up the cost.
Well, maybe a lawyer could come up with some language that would add that in. You know, because somebody needs to hire the surveyor to come out and do it. And other than having the parties split it, and then whoever was wrong gets reimbursed, I mean, I don't know really what else you're gonna do. You know, I mean, what happens, let's say, okay, so you think you're right, and Nancy thinks she's right, or the Shellfish Constable thinks they're right,
Yeah.
and you can't resolve the dispute, and the town is the one that's telling you, look, you're over your bounds, you've not been here, so the town needs to pay for it. Now, if the town ends up being right and you were wrong,
That's not what I, excuse me, that's not what I said. I said I would pay for the survey, but if I'm right, the town should reimburse me.
I can understand that.
So that should be written in.
Somebody could come up with some language for that.
Well, I think that's a matter of law rather than regulation.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
you
what-
also, you basically need, well, you need, anything that goes in here needs to run by town council anyways, but that, you could arrange something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's no arbiter there. It has to be, that would be a court or a legal proceeding. It would
Yeah.
just be hand the town your bill and they give you, they reimburse you. I don't think that would be how it worked.
And I'm having a hard time just understanding how to write something like that in, but I'm happy to send it to town council and say, you know, well, what happens if the town is wrong? But right here, what we're saying is the town is right.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with Zach.
Yeah, I also think you want to talk to town council about whether the whole GPS thing belongs in a regulation.
I'm not putting GPS in here for a reason, because who knows, like, it might be something else in 10 years.
Well,
Right?
and
So I'm
and then
just
again,
saying that I'm using the boundary points. So boundary points will be provided by the town of Wellfleet to all grant holders in their leases. And the town's boundary points will be considered the only valid points to be used to define each grant's boundary. I would say to take this out because that's, you know, I already have something else that's not Slade coming down the pike. And so I just thought that's, and I think sometimes, you know, you can too much detail can also get us lost. So then if we come down here, in the event that the assigned boundaries of an aquaculture license are called into question, the Shellfish Constable may work with the grant holders to try and resolve the dispute using the town boundary points and technology, whatever the technology of the time could be.
right.
But ultimately may cause the licensed areas to be resurveyed at the complainant grant holder's expense. And, you know, sometimes there's more than one grant holder named to a grant, which is why I felt the need to do that. But I'd love to hear, so is this, ooh, darn it. Is this something that, you know, people want to just take a silent minute to read through? And I'd love to hear, as Dwight and Damien obviously have things to say, but
Yes.
this is where I'm trying not to be too specific, but specific. It's a fine line.
Mhm. All right. Let's give this a quick read and then Damien.
Okay, so, and I'll let everybody speak, and I won't talk if you want to wait till everybody reads it.
Yep, hold up a sec.
Go ahead.
I just was gonna
Yeah.
say to Zach's comment about that this would be a legal technicality, that maybe in the regulation, we could simply notify people of their rights. You know, like, you know, there may be the right to recoup expense or whatever, depending on what town council says there, you know.
Well, okay.
Okay.
So here's, to get to the point about the fact that land surveying is going to be the ultimate determination about who's right and who's wrong. If you said something like that, like right after, if in the event the assigned boundaries of an aquaculture license are called into question, comma, the ultimate determination will always be a professional land survey of the leased area, period. And then you can say, the constable may work with the grant holders to try and resolve the dispute and by whatever means necessary. And if they can't, the complainant must pay for the survey. And, without being able to work on it, I don't have it as a Word document, so I can't play with it, but that's what I would do. I'd mess around with that language a little bit and just try to say that the ultimate determination is always going to be a land survey of the leased area. The constable may try to work with to resolve these assistance, resolve it with any new technology, but ultimately may cause the
Technology.
the licensed area ultimately may cause ultimately may cause the licensed area to be surveyed by a registered civil engineer. The rest of it's all fine.
So just to not have to go into sentences, I just put it after, so I don't have to rework the whole thing. The professional land survey shall be the ultimate determination,
Okay.
shall provide.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Dwight, were you still waiting on us? All right, looks like your hand is down, so, okay.
So somebody's gonna run this by.
I'm fine right
Yes,
now.
wait, hold on. Yes, Dwight,
Yeah, I'm fine right now.
you're fine right now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I would say, why don't we just run this whole paragraph right now by town council and see what the town council says? See if there's any ambiguity at the end of it, to see, trying to figure out who would complain about it and,
The guy paying for the,
Yeah, I know,
survey.
but so the idea is not, so now if you were right, that is a problem. Like if the leaseholder that says that I've been planting here for forever, this is my area, and then the constable says no, it's not, or somebody else says it's not, and you pay to get it surveyed, and you end up being right after paying to get it surveyed, then you should be reimbursed.
There may be CMR language that town council can reference there that would be, for leasing, for I don't know where that would be, but it may exist.
Whenever it comes to anything to do with boundaries, I'll tell you right now, with real estate, that's when the lawyers get involved, and that's really what you need to do. The lawyers need to come up with the language so that it's tight, everybody understands it, and there's never a problem down the road when we're talking about $3,000, $4,000, or $8,000 to survey something. Because who knows how much it's going to cost in the future.
True.
So is there somebody who can give me the question that for town council?
What were you saying, Damien? Is there CMR language?
To deal
That
with,
that would what
that would be to deal with giving money back to somebody if they were wrong.
right?
Yeah.
That the town, as the complainant, reimburses the I guess that I don't want to call it defendant, but in that case it becomes that
The
if you're the
aggrieved
town
person is
complaining-
out of money.
yeah, the aggrieved, yes.
Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Dwight, does that get to your thing too? what you were saying, Dwight?
Yeah, that's a good.
It's a good
question.
So, do you guys, so I'm like already like, okay, next steps, what are we gonna do here? February 1st is next Tuesday. I could ask permission from the assistant town administrator or the town administrator about going to town council with this. Perhaps you want to make a motion to approve these new potential regulations for the select board to review. But first that they go by town council or something like that so that I can do something with them. I don't know, on your behalf. If you want to do it yourselves, I can give you their information. I can send this to the chair.
Board, are we comfortable with the way this has been rewritten?
Yes.
Unless the grant holders that are here have a problem with it, I would say it looks good. It looks fine to me. What you want to do is just make sure that there's nothing illegal in there, so the town council has to look at it first. And then if it's,
Yes.
assuming it's okay, or she only needs to change 1 or 2 words in it or whatever, just say run with it.
Okay, so then we should make a motion to have Nancy to conditionally approve that these changes made tonight based on having, I would say, the Shellfish warden run it by town council. Does that seem like where we want to go, folks?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
could make a simple motion. Why don't we approve the changes to 7.23 pending approval from town council?
How about review?
Yeah, I think the motion is to have Nancy review with town council, the new wording of 7.23, just leave it at that.
Pending review by town council, that's perfect. All
I'd
right,
make that motion.
is there a second?
One of you grant holders. There you go. We're on.
Was that a second?
Yep, I second the motion.
Okay,
Zach,
all in
second.
favor with a roll call?
Tom, yes.
John, yes.
Damien,
Becca?
yes.
Damien, yes. Zach?
Yes.
All right, Becca, yes.
5-0.
Can you just tell me, because I want to provide this to town council, can you just tell me who made the motion?
Tom made the motion.
Okay.
Tom made the motion. Zach
Seconded by,
second. Zach second,
Mhm.
and we had a 5-0 vote.
Great. And it's not even 8 o'clock yet.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I know I'm late. I'm looking at if a willful violation of this section is then established, the aquaculture license of the individual guilty of the infraction shall then be revoked. How is it determined it's a willful violation if I paid for I pay for the survey and I'm wrong? Does that automatically put me in the position of being a willful violation? And do I therefore lose my license?
It's a very good question.
No,
you know,
Aren't
I
these two-
think
I
that.
think the lawyer's
the way
got to
that-
weigh in.
Wait, let's hear from the warden.
Sorry.
No,
You know, I think this is something where if the Shellfish Department is working with the grant holders and, you know, we understand whether this was something that was, I guess this is where the warden's discretion would come in. You know, if we're working
Yeah.
together and we're trying to just find a resolution, you know, and maybe that's why before it just said violation, it might not be a violation, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
Yeah.
there's no adjective in front of it originally,
Mhm.
because maybe it wasn't really a violation. You know, they might have been in the wrong place, but it wasn't a violation because you didn't really realize that. And you weren't, you know, you were just contesting it because you thought it was your bottom, but it wasn't, you know, you didn't,
Mhm.
you said you didn't, I've always thought it was there. You're not doing, I don't know. Am I making sense? Sorry, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Who
You-
came up with, that sentence about the willful violation? Do you remember?
That was in there. Anything that is not bolded was in there.
Well, willful's in bold, but I'm just, willful
Because we just added
violation.
that.
Yeah. I don't know why it needs to be in, you know, if a willful violation, that would be like if you said you're wrong and we want you to move your shellfish off it right now until we resolve the dispute, then you say, no, I'm not, I'm leaving my shellfish right where it is. That's a willful violation. But otherwise,
I was thinking of it more like I decide to extend my grant by a couple of acres and I get called on it. And that's pretty willful. But the difference between either not having your paperwork in order and not knowing it because it's been 30 or 40 years, or the ice came in and you put your boundaries back, you put your buoys back where you thought they went and they're a couple of 100 yards out of whack. Like that's not, there's a difference between like somebody who's intentionally trying to take property or encroach on their neighbors versus somebody who's just had a misunderstanding or buoys drifted or sediment drifted or whatever. Like, it
Yeah,
seems
I don't
like-
think that I don't think the department would view that, something like that as a violation.
Yeah, okay.
It's the terminology though, that,
Mhm.
you know, it's,
Yeah.
you know what the department will do when you're in charge of the department. You don't know what the department will do going forward. And,
Yeah.
and it says shall. I don't know if it should say may, just so that it's not.
Well, I
automatic.
don't want to change. Okay, but this
Yeah.
stuff has been, so if I take this out, right, that sentence has been in there for a long time. And I think we have to have a really good reason to take it out. Like right
Yeah.
now, we're trying to help resolve boundary disputes, but I don't want to rewrite the whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I agree. I agree.
well, and
Give it to
that
the
whole
attorney.
last sentence there about the willful violation, you know,
Mhm.
that is, you know, that says the whole, that deals with the whole section. So they're not just talking about, you know, a boundary. They're talking about if you're in violation of 7.23,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
the word
I think
then,
willful has to stay.
yeah.
Has to stay.
If a willful violation of this section is, I don't know why the word then is in there. Maybe that makes it confusing to me. Willful violation, I don't
I
know.
was assuming then established as in after you finish this stuff, it's been established. But I think willful
Yes.
versus accidental is an important distinction,
Right.
you know?
I don't know why it just doesn't say in the event of a willful violation of this section, comma, the aquaculture license of the individual guilty shall be revoked.
I think
In
we
the
already
event.
voted on it and we should just leave it the way it is.
Yeah, you know, it's fine with me. As long as the lawyer's happy with it, I'm fine with it, you know?
Yeah.
That, you
Yeah,
know,
we
ask
already-
her about that last sentence there, about after willful.
Yeah, I'm fine with it as long as you've discussed it and you understand the concerns of a
Right.
shell fisherman.
I definitely understand your concern there.
Yeah.
Um,
So the motion remains. You're having a
I think it would
lawyer
have to
review
be an
it.
egregious willful violation, you know, like.
Well, that's, the lawyer may have something to say about that. She may be able to tighten that right up and we'll go, oh yeah, that's right. So let her look at it and see what she says.
Yeah.
I think it's a she.
So.
No idea who our lawyer is right now.
All right.
All right, so thank you, Nancy, for moving that on to the next step.
Nancy, it seems like you've got a lot of conflicts this week from what I've been hearing.
Conflicts?
Yeah, didn't you get a lot of stuff? Everything you wanted flew by the select board the other night, right?
Oh, boy. We had wonderful things happen, actually. I was really
Well,
pleased.
I listened to
Actually,
it.
and many congratulations to you guys for all your work on the Hilta stuff, because it really did. There was good discussion there, but there wasn't a lot of disagreement. So the work that you guys did with all those public meetings and all the thought that you put into what should happen out there, I thought I was really impressed with how that went at the select board meeting. I don't know how you guys felt, but I was really like, you did good work.
Well, I thought that that meeting went
Thank
well
you.
for everything to do with shellfishing, so I was happy with it too, you know?
Great.
Yeah, the seasonal permits, they did that. Everything that you guys
Yeah.
approved. They did.
Right.
But you know what they didn't do, and I'll have to, they didn't read your motion on ARC. So that you
Oh, they
might want to
didn't.
send again.
Mhm.
They didn't read that what you guys had done, the work that you had done on ARC. So it might be worth sending that. Sorry.
That
They
should go on
also-
the agenda for the next meeting, which should be
Yeah,
very
it's the
early in
22nd.
March.
Right. There you go.
Right, because we have to have a next meeting before they have theirs.
But I got the sense that some, if not all of them, listened to our meeting recording.
Is that on our agenda tonight, the ARC thing?
No,
No.
no, let's not talk about ARC.
Nope.
Right. So what is on the agenda next? Sorry for
That's
distracting
it.
everybody
That's
there.
it. It's just
Oh,
this
that's it?
topic.
This was it for
Okay.
tonight.
And then whether or not, what do we do next? Do we send, because, the next meeting, I got to put all this stuff together and then have you guys
Yes.
review it.
As
And,
far as I understand it, I have to recuse myself from any discussion of ARC unless the select board changes their vote. So
That's gonna be at another published, they're gonna have to publish it and it's gonna be announced, so there's gonna be another meeting about that. And that's when they'll make their decision
I
about
think
what they're
they
gonna
said the
do.
22nd of February was
Yes.
their next meeting on it.
So if you
Yeah.
guys want to meet beforehand,
Let's forget
Yeah,
about
we
ARC
should,
for a
we should
minute.
talk about that and have a united front when it comes to that. I mean, I
Let's-
think we could talk about that in 2 minutes. So let's just put it on the agenda before our next meeting, whatever that is. Right?
Yeah, we could do that, but let's talk about this. Where do we go from here? We got a response to the select board by 2-1. We're not gonna make that.
So that thing that you wrote, Nancy, what we're doing there is you're gonna get the okay from town council that looks good, right? And you're
yeah,
just
so
gonna
maybe,
submit,
so maybe what we do is, I send this to you guys. And you submit it to the select board and let them know that, that we are sending it to town council to review.
all right, so
That
Tom,
way
do
you
you
meet
want,
your deadline.
are you
There
able
we
to
go.
do that?
No.
Who's
No,
got
This is
that
one-
document?
Tom, go
This is
ahead.
one part of it. This is one part of it. We got the whole process I can write up.
Oh, no, I
Hey.
don't think you need a process. That's it. It's the regulation.
They just wanted to know if that regulation looked good, right?
I don't
That
think so.
regulation defines the process.
Well, we should perhaps submit
No,
this
no.
and see what else they'd like us to work on.
Well,
They're definitely gonna want comments from us about the ARC thing, but when it comes to the boundaries and all the rest of this, that boundary dispute thing, I think we covered it.
We
You
can certainly
know,
submit what we have and see what they
We
have to
tweaked the
say.
regulation a little bit, and as long as the town council's happy with it, that's what we're going with for now, and that's what will be in our regulations. Because that's the process for that. The select board looks at it, they say, okay, the town council looked at it, that's okay, and then it becomes part of our regulations.
Yeah, but Nancy's got to put that back up, but as a, you know, all the things we took, all the good points we made about what we're gonna be doing, that's not in that regulation.
What do you
With
mean
what,
about
the-
what we're doing?
Well, Nancy's gonna try to work on the boundary GPS to get the boundaries out to the team before they start putting out their equipment for 2022.
Well,
Wait,
all
hold
that
on.
kind of
I
stuff.
Wait, hold up, Nancy,
Okay.
yeah?
So let me, so this is, I was reading that, but let me just see here. So doesn't it say right here that boundary points will be provided? In their leases, but in their leases, but we could just let them know that that's a project that the town is that we're gonna take on
Mhm.
in 2022. They already do have them in their leases.
Can I, Becca, through you? Can I just,
Sure.
what I'm thinking is that, Tom, your question is, who's gonna tell the select board all the things that we want them to know? And I think, I don't know the need, I think this is what they want to look at and approve. And one of us is gonna be at the select board meeting online, and that's when we can tell them, this is what we talked about, you know? We discussed boundary disputes. And we discussed what to do with the parcels out there. I don't know what else, the only question we had from them was this.
I mean, I think that the
Well-
conversation has come up that, you know, we could suggest that maybe the town should do their own survey of the entire beach. And I think everyone agreed that that's just never going to happen. So there's no point suggesting it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been suggested, and nobody liked the idea. It's too much money.
Yeah.
It
I
all
mean-
comes back to the fact that any disputes between the abutters is a dispute between two abutters. It's not the whole town's problem.
I feel like that's here too. You know, we can work with the
Yeah.
grant holder or holders.
Mhm.
I would just tell the select board after lengthy discussions,
Yeah,
looking
this is
at this
where we
from
went.
every which way we could, this is the regulation we came up with, and as long as town council is happy with it, this is what we recommend our regulations say, and that covers everything.
Okay. All right, so what I'll do is, I'll prepare the front end note and basically say this new, there's some changes to 7.23. Nancy will take it to legal. And when legal responds, then we can review it at a select board meeting. Something like that?
Yeah, that's what, can I ask you just to copy the whole board with whatever you send?
Oh, yeah, I always copy the whole board.
Here, I'm gonna send this to you guys so that you can send this to them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I
Nancy.
will send it to Charlie and Rebecca roughly and just asked to
Yeah,
do it to town council.
There you go.
and I'll do it before 2/1. And then I'll copy you, John, back, of course, Nancy, Zach, and Damian. What time is it?
All right.
Yeah, after 2-hour discussion, and that's what we come up with. And
Dave's
we
got
had,
his hand up.
and we
What's
had
that?
good representation from some grant holders.
Yes.
When's our next meeting?
Hold on. Dave, what's your question?
It wasn't really a question. I was just seeing if you guys wanted, I could join the SAB again if you guys want another person.
Jeez,
That would be great.
That
that
would
would be great, Dave.
We'd
Yeah.
love to have you back.
Thank you.
But like, I just want to be like a regular member. And
Oh,
not,
yeah,
like,
no.
so.
I'm hoping that once we get more regular members, we can divide the work a little bit more,
I'm glad to hear it.
but we'd love to have you back.
All right.
Dave, do you know how to
Do
fill
you-
out the paperwork and all that stuff? You know how to do the
That's
paperwork.
what I was just gonna ask. I go to a town hall, right?
Yeah, I think, can you print? If I send you the document from the Town of Wellfleet website, can you print?
Yeah.
Right, at 2 minutes of 8, it being a school night, what else do we need to agree on?
Next meeting.
Oh, yeah. Pick a day, pick a time. Anybody got the tides?
February. So when is the select board's meeting that we're supposed to be getting this back to them by? Was it?
February 22nd, Becca.
Okay. All right, and when did we need? The piece that we just worked on tonight, did they want that back for the first meeting of the month? Don't they have 2 meetings?
They wanted it by February 1st. I don't think it's gonna make the agenda, the way they were
Okay.
talking.
Yeah.
They
that's-
probably won't talk about this until March.
All right. There's the
Plus, I
time
don't
sheet.
know, I don't know how long it'll go through the legal process.
Anything we send the select board now, you're right, it's not gonna happen this month, but they'll be looking at it next month. Well, the end of February.
Right, the full moon is the 1st of February, so that week's probably not so good. So
But when is when is the next meeting?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Oh,
Monday the 7th? Tuesday the 8th?
Monday the 7th, he got low tides at 10:20 in the morning.
Yeah. And they're not very good tides. The evening tides are after 10 o'clock at night. They're a 1, bigger than a 1.
So what about the 6th and 7th?
6th is a Sunday. You want
Yeah.
7th or 8th?
7th or 8th is good.
Well, the 8th is when the select board meets, so why don't we do it
Hold
the
on a
7th?
second. Hold on a second. Ow.
You could do the 9th also. That's 12 o'clock.
Yes. 7th, 8th, and 9th are good.
What do you guys
I
think?
might have to present my budget to the FinCom on the 9th. I don't know yet. I haven't heard, but that starts at 7, I think.
Damien or Zach, you guys, what do you think?
Looking now.
I got nothing scheduled, but I'll be weather dependent.
Yeah, I'm good for any of those days.
All right,
That's next. Oh, okay. Yep.
6 o'clock,
7th, 8th, or
right?
9th, yeah. One,
7th is Monday, is that right?
yeah,
Let's go with that one.
yeah, let's
That's
go
a
with
week-
Monday, in
that's
case
a
we gotta
week-
be on the,
That's good. That's a week from Monday. That's fine.
Monday the 7th, new meeting, February meeting. All right, and we want to talk about, Nancy, you had a couple things I can get with you offline, and then we wanted to talk about the February 22nd meeting.
Mhm.
I might be able to update you on what's going on with the new harbor survey too by then.
Good.
All right, we got plenty of time to put, well, we got a week to put this together. So
Can
send me
I,
what you want, John or Nance, okay?
could
Yeah.
I,
All right.
Oops, Dave.
Dave's trying to cut in.
sorry, would it, I mean, just as an agenda item before the select board meeting, maybe try to bring ARC to the meeting about like sharing what they do for the town, what they could do, like what, you know, them being here, like how they could be more productive for people in the town, and kind of use this as an opportunity to just have them come and be like, this is what we do, like this is what we do for the town, kind of be like, this is what we want, you know, as wild farmers and wild pickers and grant holders, you know. So that not only we could just talk to ARC directly, because I know they'll work with us, but also when it goes into this Board of Selectmen meeting, that they know what's going on and how much they do or how little they do, whatever you want to believe, and it'll also show that we're aware, as a SAB and as just a person that works in the town and like how they can benefit us, so it would kind of.
Yeah, I think they got that message the other night. I think they're, that's gonna be, we're putting that on the agenda, is that right? For the 7th?
Well,
So I
here's
just,
the,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Becca. Here's the issue is Becca's got to recuse herself.
And I have something to say about that. Because the select board meeting is on the 8th, and if Dave wanted to be on the board so you guys could get a quorum, just in case something happened with Damien, he couldn't make it, then you might want to do it
The 9th.
you could do it on the 8th, the same day as the select board meeting, or the 9th. And then I could just ask FinCom to do me they're doing it both. And so I could just ask them to do me on the following week, FinCom meeting in February.
Can the paperwork be done that quickly?
Yeah, just after they approve, then you just go into town hall and you get sworn in. So you'd have to go into town hall on Wednesday, the 9th, and get sworn in.
Does the Board of Selectmen have to approve me as a member?
Yes,
Yes.
They have
they
to
do it on
appoint
the
you.
8th though, Dave. If we get the
Oh.
paperwork. in.
Okay.
Okay.
If you guys
So-
want to do that, I was just thinking that it would be a good way to
Well,
really give everybody a heads up before going into a Board of Selectmen meeting and
Mhm.
there was a lot of things that I don't think people were really prepared for, and you guys were not prepared for even why you had an SAB meeting. So like, I mean, I was only there. The only reason why I'm even doing this right now is because I was, oh, whoa, what's going on, And then I got interested again. So,
So we
Yeah.
could, it sounded like Wednesday, the 9th was pretty clear for everybody. We could easily move that meeting. We just got to let Zach know his phone battery died.
Yeah, I'll let him know.
And we can just move it over to the 9th. And then there's a chance that you might get approved by the select board on the 8th. You can hit the town hall on the 9th and get sworn in, and you could be in the meeting. And we would
I'll
actually
do
have
it.
enough people.
I'll do it tomorrow. I'll just go there.
Okay.
Tomorrow will be cold, I think.
Okay.
we can also, I'm gonna probably attend the select board meeting anyways, just if they're gonna be talking about ARC, which it sounds like they are. I
They're
will-
only on
supposed
the
to talk about it on the
22nd.
22nd.
What's that?
They said they
It's
were
on-
going to take it up again. On
Oh,
the
right,
22nd.
right, that's right.
I mean, if you guys want to do this, like I was just thinking, there's a lot of logistics involved with it, like reaching out to ARC and us talking to them, and so I don't know.
I'm
It's
not
up-
allowed to discuss it, so.
Yeah, so
Hard here,
and we need to put it on the agenda before we start
Mhm.
talking about it at length here, but
Yeah, let's.
I think
let's-
we all have our heads squarely fixed where it needs to be on ARC. I don't think we need to
Okay.
talk about it too much.
So
All right,
Nancy has something to say, and did we just, let's move that meeting to Wednesday.
got
Yes,
it.
Nancy.
Wednesday the 9th, 6 p.m.
Wednesday the 9th, 6 p.m. Please let Zach know, because I will
All
forget.
right,
I texted Zach.
Thank you.
I wanted to pick up, I had made myself a note about what Damien had said at the last meeting.
Mhm.
And so look in the chat.
Okay.
Damien, is this right? The thing that you wanted to talk about? And we wanted to do it before the fishing season, dragging season
Hmm.
starts. Damien?
I see him there. He
I'm
says
here.
it's
I
muted.
was just reading it. Sorry.
Oh.
Yes, that was something I had brought up. And I do think it's a good idea.
Nance, how do you see that on this screen?
Oh, the
I saw
chat,
it and then
so
it-
go
then it
down the
disappears.
bottom and hit chat, and it should pop up on the right side.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
Nancy, what I had recommended though, was that we have an operator's permit, a vessel operator's permit that is different than a commercial shellfishing permit.
I didn't know what,
But
I
that-
just made myself a note. So I'd be interested in hearing your ideas.
Because a Wellfleet shellfishing permit would be under residency requirements, that a vessel's operator permit would then be open to people residing in other towns to operate the vessel as long as there is a license holder on the vessel. Much as a grant operator would be able to employ someone to work on the grant who is not under the residency requirements. And that
This
was,
already, that's what this is. Because as long as the owner of the boat has a shellfishing permit, then, or the
Or
operator.
operator, right?
Does that make sense, Damien?
So does this say the owner could live in Eastham as long as the operator has a Wellfleet license? Or am I confused? I've never fished with this regulation, so I'm confused and it's late.
It reads to me that anybody with any boat can bring the boat in and have a Wellfleet commercial shellfishing on board, and they can go dragging. The way this
Well,
reads.
I didn't mean to interrupt, Damien, I'm sorry. Maybe you could just like send to Tom what your agenda item is. I just had made myself a note, and so when Tom said, what do you have on yours? I just didn't want to forget, that's all.
gotcha. What you posted in chat there, that is the current regulation, correct?
All right, I'll include that and then we could discuss it.
Okay.
8.6, got it.
All right. Anything else before we call this for the night? Okay, so we've moved the meeting to the Wednesday. We're gonna have Dave back, hopefully by then. We've got, it sounds like at least 2 things for the next agenda. And it's now 8:11 and we are officially done.
Great.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank
you.
you.
Good meeting. Tired.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Yep.